Welcome to a special edition of Biz Bites for Thought Leaders. Now, thought leadership is not always about being the most knowledgeable person in the room. Sometimes it's about being the bravest. And my guest today, Sheryl Jones, lives with a silent disease. And rather than stay quiet and just focus on her own health, she's chosen to speak up, to share her story, and ask for support to get her message out. There's a lesson in here for every thought leader. Be brave, put yourself out there, and share your journey, your insights, and your story, because you do not have to have all the answers now. Authenticity always wins. I'm your host, Anthony Perl. Let's get into Biz Bites for Thought Leaders with the remarkable Sheryl Jones. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Biz Bites for Thought Leaders. I'm delighted to have Sheryl with me today. We're going to take you to a different kind of place for this program because it's about thought leadership in a different way to what we normally cover, I would say, in the program, because this is really going to be get you thinking about your health. It's going to get you thinking about the things that impact people and how you need to make changes and how you need to lead from the front, even when you are the person at the center of what is causing some of the issues. So that's probably a bit of a mysterious lead in, but Sheryl, firstly, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Well, what we like to do on the show always is allow you to introduce yourself. So Sheryl, why don't you explain who you are and what you're about?
Okay, my name, as you said, is Cheryl. I'm 67 years old. I am retired. I live down in South Gippsland. I've been retired, I had to force retirement type thing because of what I have. Although I'm leading a very good life at the moment because I've been mindful and I'm hopefully doing the right thing. I've been in Australia since I was 13. We emigrated from Wales, from Cardiff, actually. Love Australia. I've been around Australia 3 times. Absolutely love it. It's God's best kept secret. I've done a variety of work. I've been a trainer. I counted urea bags in Western Australia. I was Fred Bassett over there. So I like to try things. I've also spoken in the House of Lords when I went over for a holiday on education. They found out that I was going over there. I spoke in Baroness Cox's committee, only supposed to speak for 20 minutes. I spoke for 40 and I had them in tears. That was the time back when we had Dr. David Kemp as federal minister. He's the liaise with me. It's not the teacher's fault, it's the teacher's teachers. So we found, and I did that for a number of years. And then, of course, we had a marriage breakup and then I moved to the mainland. It seemed for health reasons that Queensland was better. My son was also a chronic asthmatic when he was a child. I had asthma when I was born, so I've grown with it. So Queensland, because of the mild weather, the nice weather, was a lot more suitable for us to live, and we lived there for a number of years. And then until, when was it, in 2014, I lost my father and my mother. I lost her in 2009. So you live a very different life when you've lost your parents. You become really, really independent then, which is good. You have to. I also got diagnosed in 2014 with emphysema, though it did lay dormant for a number of years till 2020, and I came down here. I accidentally didn't know, but I was putting bark into sacks and on selling them because we had a couple of trees felled in the property, and that caused brittle asthma. Brittle asthma is very different. You can't walk 2 feet and you're puffed out. It's not emphysema, it is literally brittle asthma. That was terrible. Had that for about 18 months. Then that subsided, kept on coughing, had more tests. Emphysema had raised its head. So I was really panicking then because where I come from, my grandfather died at 56 with emphysema. My mother was diagnosed with emphysema. Yes, they were both smokers. Even I was a smoker, but gave up in 2014, mind you. They also say that because we were born with asthma, it can lead on to COPD and emphysema. So, of course, I was in panic mode because back then we were led to believe that if you were diagnosed with emphysema, you only had 7 to 10 years to live. So you can imagine what I went through, because I'd just come down and my son was down here, had a grandson. I was reconnecting with all my old friends because I used to live in Melbourne in the past, having a great time down here. And then all of a sudden this, you don't know what to do. You're scared you're going to die. And I remember seeing what my grandfather went through. I do not want anybody to see what myself in that position when it comes to the end times. So fortunately, I had a very good doctor. And she said, Cheryl, you ring up the Lung Foundation. I rang up the Lung Foundation, and I can honestly say they saved my life, literally. I was with the nurses for about 18 months. They used to call me. We would put plans in place. They taught me how to be mindful. And no, it's not 7 to 10 years. You can live till you're 90. You can live till you're 100. So that's what I intend to do. Live way past 100.
There's so much to unpack in all of that, because it's been quite a story. And I love how you've summarized that very quickly. And I should tell everyone that Cheryl and I have had a couple of conversations. So this is, there's a lot to explore here in what's been a very interesting journey. I want to start back to the beginning, if I can, and talk about, that moving from Cardiff, from Wales, and moving to Australia as a 13-year-old. It's kind of an awkward age to be moving, right? Because you've got friends and everything, you settled there. So it's a big move to come to Australia. What was that like, and how did that have an impact, you think, into, for things in the future for you?
It was very sad for me because I had to sell my horse. We had to give the dog away because we didn't realize we could actually take dogs. We gave all our records away. So yeah, for me, I was doing so well at school. I was in the 92 percentile in high school. It was devastating, absolutely devastating. However, I did enjoy the time on the boat. We were on the boat for 5 weeks going over because all the staff went on strike in Tenerife Island. So we all had an absolute blast. So the boat trip was really good. We ended up going to Tasmania because that's where a lot of my family were. I had already moved to Tasmania. For the first 3 years, I tried to stow away on a couple of big ships, Japanese ships, to try and get back to Wales. And of course, I got caught. Look, I didn't do drugs or anything back then. We weren't drinkers, so I didn't get drunk, didn't do drugs. Yes, I might have smoked, but I was still reasonably sensible. And I wanted to try everything, first for everything. So going on the Japanese boat wasn't a good move. So my mother sent me to Western Australia to be with my cousin. And from Tasmania, I got off in Melbourne. And instead of getting on the flight going from Melbourne to Perth, I just walked out of the airport and had a great time for about 2 weeks. I went on trains and I went to try and find people from the boat. And back then it was safe. It's not as safe anymore. So they did finally find me, and I did have to go to Western Australia, unfortunately. But then I did leave home a few years later. I just couldn't settle. So I ended up going around Australia. I left Mum and Dear John a letter, and I put my thumb out, let's go. So that was fantastic. However, I still did have asthma. I always had to make sure that I had my ventilator spray with me. So that was really good. I'll just go back a bit to the schooling. My first year, nobody could understand anything I was saying because as Welsh, we talk very fast. They had to assign me with an English girl who said, slow down and, we'll get you to meet some friends. So the last 2 years of school was interesting. I was put forward a year because in Great Britain, I don't know if we were more advanced, but we probably were. That's why I was put up into grade 9 instead of grade 8. So I was very young for my age, but I was tall, so I managed to take that off. Okay, if we go a bit forward. So I left home, went around Australia 3 times, ended up settling, and just sort of getting on with life, basically, doing a variety of things. I can't just do one thing. I've got to do jack of all trades type thing, worked for Medibank Private, secretary Girl Friday back then, loved horses. Although with asthma, I was allergic to everything. Horses, dogs, cats, and I was an animal lover, had 4 horses, had to take Sudafed all the time, or be prepared to be on the nebulizer that night. I wasn't going to give up my love for animals in any way, shape or form. So then I met my husband, moved back to Tasmania, had children over there. Then we moved back to Melbourne because the work wasn't really all that good over there. So we moved back to Melbourne. And then my son was really chronic with asthma. He had to have soy milk. You couldn't give him different colored cordial. He would have asthma straight away. We used to sleep in our trachea decks because we'd be calling ambulances all the time. So it was really quite sad. I had to have all his teddies put in plastic bags so there was no dust. He couldn't go to many children's parties because twisties, cokes, ice cream would set him off. That was really sad. But we did end up having an open home for him, and all his friends used to come and play with him. So that was fine. He was born, when he was first born, I didn't see him for a couple of days because he was a bit blue. And basically from a few months of age, he was allergic to absolutely everything. So he was a little bit of a nightmare to bring up. He also had sleep apnea where he'd stop breathing. So that was very interesting time. I'd be driving along and I'd look at him through the window. Oh my God, no, he stopped breathing. I'd have to scoot over, get him, shake him, lift him up, and he would come back. We had tests, and yes, when you sigh, you get that really big sigh. You do stop breathing for a few seconds. Carl would stop breathing for 18 seconds, which was 10 seconds too long. So that was really interesting for the first few years. Fortunately, our German Shepherd would sleep underneath his cot and come and get me before the sleep apnea machine would go off, which was fantastic. So that was really good. And then we moved back to Melbourne. Then I had my daughter, and she is as fit as a Mallee bull. Nothing wrong with her whatsoever. No asthma, no eczema, no allergic to anything. It was like, wow. So 2 total opposites. And to this day, she is very healthy, very fit and healthy. Whereas my son, who's now 39, only has 40% of his lungs. He has chronic COPD, but he is very healthy. The only thing he can't do is run. He eats superbly. He used to be a chef. He's a trainer to go to the gym, but he's got other work. So he's very strict with his food. And because he's strict with his food, he is very healthy himself. Doesn't smoke, doesn't drink. So I'm really pleased with all of that. So during my journey and doing a lot of things, there were a lot of people that I came across that did have asthma. But it was sort of like the silent disease. You sort of stayed home and you had it all. So that was fine. People didn't know much about asthma, didn't know anything about COPD. So as time went on, I did go back to uni when I was 39, then realized that my husband and I really weren't compatible. So there was a divorce there. I was very strong, very independent again. Got a number of positions, which was really good, in charge of quite a few telemarketers at the time, became a trainer, then moved back up to Queensland because it was better for my son. So what can I say from there? From there, we all grew up and we basically did our own thing. And like I said, back in 2014, I actually was diagnosed with emphysema, which is COPD. COPD is actually a group of lung diseases. There's 2 of them. One is emphysema and one is chronic bronchitis, but we can go into that a bit later on. What I did notice was that there really wasn't much help for COPD or, chronic lung disease. You were diagnosed with it, then that was it, bye-bye. See you later. Type thing, just keep on checking in with your doctor. It didn't affect me too much in Queensland. It was great. I could still go out dancing. Very active person. I used to do 10 kilometers a day with my dog. I had a few dogs back then, so the 2 dogs would stay home. They were small. They couldn't do the 5 kilometers, so I would take my other dog, which was great. And then, like I said, I moved back down to Melbourne. And that's when the COPD rose its head again.
I think this is a really important point to maybe pause for a minute and tell everyone that part of the reason that Cheryl and I are talking is that we'd love to help Cheryl get an ongoing podcast of her own, because I think this is such a critical message to be sharing with people and to be understanding what it's like to be living with COPD, but also what the opportunities are. I think we're going to touch on some of these things as we go through the podcast today. And I think, to me, thought leadership isn't just about getting your business in front. It's about leading with ideas and simple things. And I think being able to share stories and learn from each other, because I think one of the fascinating things that I just want to touch on that I know you spoke to me about off air, which is about the fact that there's plenty of research and things going on, but there's a lot of the obvious stuff that perhaps doesn't get noticed. And so you've already been able to be at the forefront of bringing some of these things to people's attention. I know you told me you attended a symposium last year where you made them aware of some of these things that perhaps they're not aware of.
Now, the symposium was in June. It was last November. I went up to Canberra and I spoke to a few politicians, the main speaker, on how living with COPD, what it's like, because people don't know. Because you see, look at me now, I look fine, don't I? Nothing's wrong with me. That's because I'm sitting down. Don't ask me to get up and walk into the bedroom. Don't ask me to make the bed. Don't ask me to sweep outside or vacuum. Definitely don't ask me to go walking in the shopping centre. That's a no. And we need to create this awareness because people do not realise what it's like. Also, you've got to be very mindful of where you live, what you eat, what you do. I'm very mindful of things now because I want to live till I'm 90, so I've moved into the country. And that's what I need to do is create awareness with people. So the symposium was in June, and what that was, there was a few of us that have the disease, and we, of course, went to the symposium. It was a lot of researchers getting together, telling everybody about their research. And through that, I found out about an injection. Wait for it. Drum roll. COPD. Could not believe my ears. Yes, there's actually an injection for COPD. I was so excited about that. So, of course, on the breaks, I would go up to the professor from Western Australia and ask him all about it, which I got a fair bit of information. So research has come along so far. Oh, and by the way, I didn't actually tell you, I am on another injection at this point for asthma, and I've had it for 4 months now. Once a month you have it. The only thing is, though, it wanes off around about 3 weeks, and I hit the wall. Literally hit the wall. So I'm hoping in a couple of months' time to transgress or go on to this COPD injection. Fingers crossed.
I think, this is interesting that you have to go to some of these things to hear about some of these opportunities, but equally there's things that those that are living with this are able to inform the researchers on, because they tend to look, I guess, at higher level things and not get maybe not aware of some of the day-to-day symptoms and impacts that people are having.
Well, no, that's right. We've actually brought something up to the group of us there. We all realize that when we're having flare-ups, even a small flare-up, like maybe walking down the road, we start sweating. So you will see a few people going around with fans like this in the middle of winter. My head is dripping with sweat. I just thought it was one of those things, but no, it actually gets worse. So this is called the silent disease. So people cannot see, unless you're literally sawing wood all the time. That's what I call it. It is very hard to see. So what the symposium did was actually show us there's research out there, which is excellent. And then we've asked a couple of people to look into how we sweat. And can there be some research done on that? So that was absolutely excellent, absolutely superb.
We can't go past this without explaining. Tell us what sawing wood is.
Oh, sawing wood. When you've had an asthma attack, when you've got constant emphysema, that's what I call sawing wood. You can hear somebody all the time, so they've either got asthma or they've got emphysema or chronic bronchitis. One of the two.
think the fact that this is, as you've described it, is a silent disability because people, can't see it. So obviously, and that makes it hard. I mean, there are a number of these things that fall into this category. And I think we're still, as a society, still coming to terms with that and understanding that, just because we see someone that looks completely fine doesn't mean that they actually are fine. And I guess that's the case. Is how do you grapple with that? Is it something where you feel the need to tell people about it? At what point does that come into the equation?
No, I actually don't tell anybody, only a few. Well, I am now, because I was on Facebook and did some promoting for the Lung Foundation to generate some more money. So people see me on the foundation, they know I've got it now. But what I find is when I do tell people, the majority of people treat me differently. Oh, can't come here, don't invite her here, don't ask her to do this, don't ask her to... No, do not do that. Okay, don't ask me to run a marathon, don't ask me to do anything quickly, let me bide my time a bit, but just treat us normal, because we can hear, we can see, we can still do things. Like I said, when I'm sitting down, everything is great. So there is a badge actually out, and it's a sunflower, and it just says, I have a silent disease. Now, I'm going to try and get some of those so that I can actually promote it, and people can see it. They can either have the sense to come up and say, well, what type of disease do you have? And sort of go from there. Because, again, one of my main reasons for hopefully doing these podcasts is to create awareness. Living with COPD is not a death toll. You can live till you're 90 or 100. You'll probably be taken up with something else. Well, that's fine, and there is now treatment, and it can be prevented. So they've come that far in doing things, which is just amazing. So this is where we need more research done. And the Lung Foundation are absolutely superb. Everybody that thinks they've got it, their friends, if they know of somebody, just get them to go to the Lung Foundation. There's a test, and then you can actually ring them and talk to them and talk to one of the nurses. And like I said, they saved my life, literally saved my life.
I think what's valuable for people to understand here is that people are living sometimes with this and don't recognize that there is this, and even the doctors may not have recognized that there is this. I know you were telling me off air about someone locally that you've helped direct towards the Lung Foundation as well, because you recognize some of the symptoms. So talk to me about, firstly, that process of having those conversations with someone and bringing that up and turning them towards getting help.
Down where I live now, I have a shop that I work voluntary in 3 days a week because it's a tourist area. And I have this client coming regularly to buy some dog treats. And he was sawing wood. In any case, when I got to know him, I said, how come you're sawing wood all the time? And he sort of looked at me, he said, oh, it's just one of those things. I said, no, it's not just one of those things. I said, you're always out of breath. I said, please go to your doctor and ask him to test you. Ask him to take at least an X-ray. Go to the Lung Foundation and see what they say. So he ended up going to his doctor. I did tell him about the yellow spray that I'm on for emphysema. I take it twice a day, and it helps. It helps make not things get so worse. So I told him about that. So we went to his doctor. He told him about that. The doctor did some tests or something, and he gave him the prescription for that medication. He came back and saw me the next week, and he said it's the best he's felt in 15 years. So I was so pleased that I was able to do something for somebody, and now he comes in the shop every week. And it's just amazing. I've seen him change in the last 6 months that he's been on the medication. He's not as out of breath. Still sawing wood a little bit, but after sawing wood for 15 years and only now having medication for it, he's doing pretty good. So, and look, he's 78. So if he can get to 78, I'm sure I can too. Maybe, actually older because I've got medication.
I think there's so much in there that's, I think this is the thing, isn't it? That people are going around with this kind of a disease, not recognizing it. And the fact that it takes someone like yourself to be able to point that out, I mean, he'd been living with it for quite some period of time, and hopefully now he's on a course to a much better lifestyle as a result of it. But it's almost opportunistic that you saw it. So I think, obviously we want doctors to be better educated, but we want the public to be better educated to recognize it in themselves or recognize it in other people.
Well, that's right. And there are quite a few adverts at the moment, like if you've got a persistent cough, especially after 3 weeks, if it is still there, go to your doctor, ask the questions, or go to the Lung Foundation website, take the questionnaire there, ring up the nurses there. You need to do something, because it's not only you, it is your family. Because believe you me, you don't want your family to see when you get really bad. If you can stop the progress of that, that is major, because it's absolutely awful. I remember seeing my grandfather, and I was only 7. Back in the days, though, he used to smoke a lot. Of course, he was having his oxygen mask there and then a smoke there. Oxygen, smoke. But he was still really bad. At 56, he shouldn't have gone. Should not have gone. But he did. And it was horrific. Absolutely horrific. Yes. So you don't want to get that far now that there is medication out there. What I actually find too is it's that a lot of people in the regional areas that don't have their support. Doctors down here, if you want to see a doctor down here, unless your limbs are hanging off, there's a 6-week wait. How can you wait 6 weeks? You have an asthma attack. I can't fathom that. I really can't. 6 weeks to see a doctor. Fortunately, I still see my doctor, who's 2 hours away, but we do e-health. I would not leave her for all the world. So I quite often have e-health conversations with her. And then when I go up to Cranbourne and Carrum Downs, I then go and see her as well. So, but down here, 6-week wait to see a doctor. That's way too far. We've got to do something about that.
Yeah, it's a massive problem in Australia. I think it's often if you're living in the cities, you don't tend to think about the more remote areas of Australia, of which there are many. And even what you just said, jumping in the car or public transport, whatever it is, and spending 2 hours to get to a doctor, that in of itself is hard to believe.
Yeah.
And it's sad that in this day and age that we still have this issue. So, again, I love what you're doing, Cheryl, because I think this is about making people aware of what it's like living it, but making people aware about some of the problems in the system and the things that we need to change and to need to get on top of. And, simply having access to medical professionals in your area and being able to get an appointment, like ideally that day or the next day, and I think that's one of the things that we forget if you live in a city type area, that there are 24-hour medical centers that you can go to and pretty much get an appointment whenever you want.
Oh, well, that's right. But if I had to go somewhere in the nighttime here, the closest town that's only 20 minutes away, apparently is private run, the emergency department. And I would have to pay $150 before they saw me. I sort of think, how does that work? Number one, it's 20 minutes away. Would I last 20 minutes? Number two, I'm there. I cannot breathe. You want me to go to the bother of getting out my card and paying you $150? I can't breathe. Well, for goodness sake, see me first. $150? Unless I then go to Wonthaggi or Leongatha, which do have hospitals. But that's a 40-minute drive. So something really has to be done down here, because there's over 50% of people with COPD symptoms that do not know they actually have it. 50%. Now that's incredible. I've got a whole heap of figures here, and it's incredible. I'll give you one figure, which is $24.98 billion. That's a total annual cost, including $4.85 billion in lost productivity for people with COPD. The amount of money is huge, absolutely huge. So surely we should have more research, more clinicians, more care, more awareness, and we can cut that cost down. And then people will be able to live a longer life.
What are we talking about, Cheryl, if you've got that in hand? What are the sort of numbers of people that actually have been diagnosed with COPD, whether you've got them in Australia or globally?
Well, British, I've basically got, how many people have it, not necessarily being diagnosed, because we need to bring a spotlight to COPD because it needs to be a case for change.
Yes.
People are beginning to recognize it, like I said, but it's still very hard. Like within the Lung Foundation, there is a peer group support, which is fantastic because you need to find your tribe. If people know that terminology, you need to find a group so that you can speak to. And that has only just started being going about 12 months now. So therefore, we're still very new in actually getting treatment and people surviving better because all this research is being done. I've been told that going to lung rehab is absolutely paramount to you finding it easier to live with. I haven't been yet because I've got a psychological block with it. I've been meaning to go for 2 years. I'm scared to go because I don't want to see somebody there that's really bad because it'll bring back the memories of my grandfather. So I've got a real psychological block with that. But I'm being I'm being supported. Come on, you got to go. And I've got 3 referrals to go and it's only 20 minutes away. So I've really got to do something within the next few months, I think, because it will help. Very much so. Physio helps. There are a lot of things out there that help, but people don't know about them.
Okay, just before we move on, I know I've just pulled up a couple of figures here from out of the Australian government, and we're talking about 500,000 people in Australia over 45 that are estimated to be living with COPD, and the costs are, as you say, 1.8 billion was spent on the condition. That was in 23-24. So, and they estimated something close to 7,500 deaths a year that are as a result of this. So this is something serious that perhaps doesn't get the attention that it deserves. And I think, what I love about you is that you could be just worry about yourself.
Yeah,
but you've taken it upon yourself to do more. And as we said, we'd love to get a podcast up and running on a regular basis. So definitely looking for support and sponsors out there who can help with that. And we'll have contact information for Cheryl in the show notes. But tell me what's driving you to get help from other people, to help other people as well.
When I found out that I could live longer than 7 to 10 years, well, I thought, right, I've got to do something about this. I love life. I'm an optimist. So I really want to help other people. I don't want them to be alone with it because I live by myself. I've just got my dogs. It can be lonely. It can be scary. And I just want people to reach out just to know there's somebody at the end of the phone that you can talk to. If you can't talk to them, okay, you can text them. There'd be an email. You can text them because, okay, you may be having an attack, but there could be somebody there at the end of the phone. Do you know how hard it is when you're having an asthma attack or you have an emphysema flare-up and there's nobody around and nobody knows? It is horrific. You can't breathe. Like, you can't breathe. You've got nothing. You're dead. Like, hello? Unfortunately, I've actually had such a bad attack once many, many years ago. I actually collapsed. If my husband then hadn't performed CPR on me, I would be dead. Totally dead. And it was basically because I had a wood fire and there was no air in the room. And I woke up and I couldn't breathe and I didn't have the energy to take my asthma spray. So it can be fatal. Just asthma in itself can be fatal. Flare-ups with COPD are very different to asthma because unfortunately with me, my asthma medication doesn't work. If I've got that, how many other people are like that? But guess what? I could ring up somebody from the peer support group because I've got their number. I'm going through a bad time. I can say, can you just be on the other end of that phone? Just sit with me. We're not alone. So we've got to be able to do something. And I just want to reach out because, like I said, people wouldn't know I was sick. And you don't know who's got emphysema because they just might go out when they're not even sawing wood. You could be standing next to them, and they're going home to a lonely house, and they're having a flare up by themselves. How sad is that? Now, on my watch, that's not happening. Not happening. But what I want to be able to achieve with the podcast is not only living with COPD, is that I want to get together enough money so that we can have retreats and like respite. But people who've all got COPD or asthma, they can all join together in warmer weather, but not really hot weather. Maybe Coffs Harbour or somewhere like that. To have something like that, it would be a dream come true. People would relax. Because like I said, we all found out when we all met at the Symposium, the ones that had emphysema, that we start sweating. Now, we didn't know that before until we all got together. I also told them when we were having a Zoom meeting that I always used to have peppermints on me. I used to give my son peppermints. And of course, as soon as you start having an attack, you put a peppermint there or a brown bag. When I was 6 years old, my mother would put my head out the window and then give me a brown bag to breathe into, because we didn't have the nebulizers back then. So you really had to be careful. Now we do. We have all the help in the world. I've got a tiny little nebulizer that I can carry around. Absolutely magic. But like I said, it doesn't work as well as what it used to. So on my watch, I want people to listen to this podcast, get in touch with the Lung Foundation, know that there is hope. It can be treated and it can be prevented if you get there fast enough or soon enough. Don't get too fast, you could get sick. But it can also be prevented. If that is the case, got to do something about it.
And just to emphasize to people, it's 1 in 13 people over 40 in Australia that have this. So there's a significant amount of people. So the chances are that we all know somebody that is wrestling with this. And
Correct.
So the opportunity to get more information out there is huge. And I think what we want to get into a little bit is a couple of things about living with it from your perspective. I mean, you've talked a little bit about moving around and how much of a decision around environment, and moving out of the city area was dictated by, living with this. And, what is the ideal climate? Is there an ideal climate to be in?
Well, put it this way, I've now found the ideal climate for me. People are different. South Gippsland is fantastic. Even though it might get cold, when you have the head sweats, it might only be 9 degrees and I'm walking around in a t-shirt. It's fantastic. Whereas I found in Queensland, the humidity was too much. So I think probably, yes, everybody is different, but I found it great down here. I also found the country is better, simply because you don't have the busyness of the city, the busyness of the cars. Because one of the reasons why we actually do sweat is because we have to spend so much energy on breathing properly. And again, you're in like Dandenong, going to Dandenong markets, the people there, it's like, oh my God, it takes your breath away. So I've got to concentrate on breathing to get to where I want to go. And that is really hard, because then I've also got to look at what's happening around me. Years ago, that didn't matter. I could just drive. Now I think, no, where am I going? What am I doing? How long am I going there? Can I walk that far? When I go to the airport to go home to Tasmania to see the rest of my family, I can't walk to the airplane. I have to get one of those little buggies. I don't want to be pushed in a wheelchair, because by the time I get down there, I would have had, and they'd send me back home again. Even in hospitals. You've got to walk upstairs. It's just too much. You've got to find a lift. And these people who design these supermarkets and hospitals, they put a florist right next to the canteen. I used to be so allergic to flowers and smells, I couldn't go to the canteen. Like that, by the time I got to the canteen, it's like, hello, supermarkets. A lot of supermarkets put the smelly things like the for your clothes and everything down one aisle, and exactly the opposite is the dog food. I've got dogs. I've got to run down, grab and come back because I can't handle the smell. That's going to set off a flare up. So living with COPD is so hard unless you want to stay home all the time and basically do nothing which you can't do, which is ridiculous. So it is a daily thing. Where are you going? What are you doing? What is the weather like? Can't go out if it's cold weather. Cold weather's not too bad, but then it's the wind that takes you back, totally, which is not good. So you need to stay in a warm environment and something with no pollution. There's no pollution down here. So you need to be mindful, really mindful. If you can't get to the country, then at least look at your house, and be very mindful of where you live. Is there clutter around? I love clutter. I really do. But there could be too much clutter because who's got to clean it, and the dust it can create. So you've got to be mindful all the time. You can't just get up every morning and go. You sort of wake up, right, what is it like today? What's the weather going to be like? What am I doing today? All right, let's get up first and see what's going on. So a totally different lifestyle, totally different.
Talk to me a little bit about, the loneliness of living with this, because it is, as you said, a silent disease, and in many cases, people don't, I guess, want to be a burden, but that can make it quite lonely having this, even if you are surrounded by family and friends.
Oh, it can, because they don't know what it's like not to breathe. I remember people in my family watching me on a nebulizer because unfortunately I was the only one that had it. And then afterwards they expect you to be okay and go and do everything. Well, no, it can't happen like that. It's lonely because it's scary. It's scary because you can't breathe and there's nobody to give you that assurance to hold your hand. There's nobody there like that. And that is, look, sometimes I'm in tears because I'm lonely. But then I can't ring up people then because I can't talk to them because I'm having an asthma attack or a flare up, So I text. And then, somebody will ring me and they'll just stay on the phone with me. It doesn't happen very often. But I've got a plan. And a couple of my girlfriends, they know if they haven't heard from me in a few days, they will call me, right, what's up? Have you had a flare up or have you been doing? And I can sort of talk to them like that. Fortunately, I live right across the road from a shop. So if I run out of food, I can just go across the road, which is fantastic. So I reckon anybody should live near a shop. Let's go. Got this because I can still have my independence. I don't have to depend on people to go shopping for me. Sometimes they've had to come with me because I stand at the front of the aisle and I say, right, I need that, that, and that, and it's down that aisle. So I'll stand at the top while they go down there and get it for me. Because if you've seen how big those aisles are in the shopping centre, like in Woolworths or Coles, you look and then you see, I can't walk down that aisle. I got the trolley, but there's no way I can walk down that aisle. So having help is good, but when you don't have help, and you're standing there and people are looking at you thinking like, why is she standing there looking at that? I haven't got time to tell you, just leave me alone. It's hard. It's not easy. So like I said, I'm going to try and get some of those badges that says I have a silent disease. But then again, I'll watch to see how many people will actually keep away from me, which is what I don't want. So like, I don't have a disease. Well, I don't have a contagious disease. It is not contagious. Another thing about it is that it's a disease that is going to kill you, which is sad. That really brings tears to my eyes at times. You know what's going to happen. So I tried not to think about that too much and to just sort of generate and make support workers, peer group workers. I have a couple of people that come and help me in the house, which is really good. But then again, I think in that area with NDIS, aged care, anything like that, the people that come to your house need to be trained on COPD. They can't come if they don't know about COPD and they come in, they sort of think, right, okay, why is she sitting there? Oh, do you want to come and help me do it? Well, sorry, I can't. I can sit down and I can watch you, but I can't come and help you. And that is really hard to get through. Like, sort of think, well, she looks really good. Why can't she come and help me? You know, so that in itself is frustrating and it's hard. And then when they go, you think, oh God, they must think I'm stupid. You know, how can I explain to them what I've got? And if I do go and help them, I could have a flare and you've gone and I'm here by myself. You know, are you going to sit here with me while I have this flare? I don't know how long it's going to last because flare-ups are different. You know, coming back from the symposium, for 2 weeks, all I was doing was coughing. I had to just cancel everything. I had a really bad flare-up. Why? I don't know. Maybe I caught something because fortunately where I live, I have very little interaction with big groups of people. And that is another mindfulness that I've decided to do myself. I can't go into big shopping centers. Can't go to big shopping centers and meet the girls for coffee because I don't have the breath to do it. But I also don't want to pick up anything. Like my doctor once said to me, you'd be really good with babies because you'd be one of the safest people that they could go with because you don't catch anything because you don't go anywhere. So so very hard. It is not easy, but I am very positive. I want this podcast to work. I want us all to go on retreats. If you're feeling lonely, I want you to pick up the phone. Hey, email. Don't always pick up the phone because I won't leave my phone number because I might not be able to answer it one day. And you'll wonder why. I'm fine, but I've got a bit of a flare and I can't talk. But email me, text me. You are not alone.
Cheryl, this has been a fascinating discussion. We've covered a lot of territory. We're definitely going to include lots of information in the show notes for people to get in contact with you. And to get in contact with the Lung Foundation as well. That's important that we do put that information there as well. Just to wrap things up, there's normally a question that I ask my guests when they come on the show, but I'm going to modify that question a little bit for you because you don't fall into the standard category that we have of people on the show. But I think nevertheless, this has been an enlightening discussion from someone who actually is a thought leader in terms of what you're trying to do and achieve. So on that note, what is it that you want to try and achieve with the podcast?
Awareness, create awareness. I want to have 2 podcasts a month. It will be a subscription podcast because with that money that we generate, I want to do the retreats for people to get together. People from South Australia, from West Australia, we all need to get together once every couple of years. So 2 podcasts, and I say only 2 podcasts because I don't have the energy to do any more. So I've got to be very careful with that. But it's creating awareness in the country or regional in the city. You might know somebody that's got it. Do you hear people sawing wood? That's a sign that they've got something. So creating awareness because there is treatment, it is preventable, and you can live a long time. So creating awareness is the biggest thing that I want to be able to achieve.
I look forward to trying to help you on this journey together as part of Podcast Done For You. For now, Cheryl, thank you so much for being part of the Biz Bites for Thought Leaders program. Really enjoyed your company and hearing about your story. I really appreciate you being so open and sharing, and we wish you luck, and I know you and I are going to stay in contact for some time.
Thank you.
And everybody, again, don't forget to check the show notes for details and information, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode of Biz Bites for Thought Leaders. We'll see you next time on the show. Hey, thanks for listening to Biz Bites. We hope you enjoyed the program. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Biz Bites is proudly brought to you by Podcast Done For You, the service where we will deliver a podcast for you and expose your brilliance to the world. Contact us today for more information. Details in the show notes. We look forward to your company next time on Biz Bites.